Is the U.S. economy teetering on the edge of collapse? With inflation lingering, tariffs shaking up trade, and consumer debt climbing past $1 trillion, some states are flashing warning signs of a major economic crash. Could your state be one of the first to crumble if a new Great Depression hits? Stick around as we count down the 10 U.S. states most vulnerable in 2025, backed by hard data and real economic trends. Let's dive in. Number 10. Nevada, Nevada, the land of neon lights and high-stakes gambling, might be betting on a losing hand in 2025. Known for its tourism-driven economy, centered around Las Vegas, Nevada's glitz hides some serious cracks. Let's break it down. The state's economy leans heavily on hospitality and gaming, which account for about 27% of its GDP, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. In 2024, Las Vegas welcomed 40.8 million visitors, but tourism spending is starting to dip as inflation squeezes wallets. Hotel occupancy rates dropped to 83% in early 2025, down from 89% in 2023, per the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. If consumer spending tightens further, Nevada's casinos and resorts could see empty slots and silent showrooms. Then there's the housing market. Nevada's median home price hit $465,000 in 2024, up 50% since 2019, while median household income lags at $71,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 6.5, one of the highest in the West. With mortgage rates hovering around 6.8%, monthly payments for a typical home now eat up 40% of average income, way above the 30% affordability threshold. Active listings in Clark County jumped 25% year over year, and 30% of homes are seeing price cuts, according to Redfin. Overbuilding during the pandemic boom left developers with unsold inventory, especially in suburbs like Henderson. Jobs are another worry. Nevada's unemployment rate climbed to 5.6% in early 2025, above the national average of 4.2%, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The state's reliance on low-wage service jobs means little cushion if tourism tanks. Add in Nevada's high per capita debt, $7,200 in credit card debt per resident per Experian, and you've got a state on shaky ground. If a recession hits, Nevada's one-trick economy could fold faster than a bad poker hand. Number 9. Florida. Florida, the Sunshine State, has been a magnet for retirees and remote workers, but its housing market and economic vulnerabilities are casting dark clouds in 2025. Let's unpack why Florida's at risk. First, the housing bubble. Florida's median home price soared to $436,000 in 2024, a 60% jump from 2019 per Zillow. Meanwhile, median household income is just $67,000, creating an affordability gap that's among the worst in the nation. In cities like Miami and Tampa, price-to-income ratios exceed 7, meaning homes cost 7 times what locals earn annually. Inventory is surging. Active listings in Miami-Dade County rose 28% year over year, and 35% of homes are cutting prices, per Redfin. Overbuilding in places like Cape Coral and Port St. Lucie has left thousands of new homes unsold, with builders offering discounts up to 15%. Insurance costs are a nightmare. Florida's coastal risks and hurricane exposure have driven homeowners' insurance premiums to an average of $6,000 annually, triple the national average, per the Insurance Information Institute. In flood-prone areas like Fort Myers, premiums can hit $10,000. Some insurers have exited the state entirely, leaving homeowners scrambling. This prices out buyers and scares off investors who once fueled Florida's Airbnb boom. Short-term rental occupancy rates dropped 12% in 2024 per AirDNA, pushing investors to sell at a loss. Florida's economy also relies heavily on tourism and construction. which are cyclical and sensitive to downturns. Tourism revenue fell 5% in 2024 as inflation crimped travel budgets, per Visit Florida. Construction, which employs 7% of the workforce, is slowing as developers pull back. With Trump's proposed tariffs potentially raising costs for imported building materials, per the Peterson Institute, Florida's growth engine could stall. If consumer spending drops further, Florida's sunny dream could turn into an economic storm. Number 8. Arizona. Arizona's desert heat isn't the only thing scorching in 2025. Its housing market is burning out fast. Phoenix, the state's economic hub, was a pandemic-era darling, but now it's a poster child for overvaluation. Let's dive into the numbers. Phoenix's median home price reached $429,000 in 2024, up 70% from 2019, while median household income sits at $66,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 6.5, signaling severe unaffordability. Mortgage payments on a typical home now cost $3,200 a month at 6.8% interest rates, eating up nearly 50% of average income. Inventory in Maricopa County swelled 31% year-over-year, with 45% of listings slashing prices per Redfin. Homes now sit on the market for 60 days, triple the 2021 frenzy. Foreclosure filings rose 18% in 2024 per Atom Data Solutions, hinting at growing financial stress. Overbuilding is a major culprit. Suburbs like Buckeye and Queen Creek saw a flood of new homes during the boom, but demand has dried up. Builders are offering incentives like 2-to-1 mortgage buy-downs, yet vacancy rates hit 9% per CoStar. Arizona's population growth, once a driver, slowed to 1% in 2024 from 2.3% in 2021 as remote workers and retirees look elsewhere, per Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity. The job market isn't helping. Arizona's unemployment rate ticked up to 4.8% in early 2025, per BLS. Tech and logistics, key sectors in Phoenix, saw layoffs in 2024, with companies like Intel cutting 15% of their workforce. High utility costs. Electricity bills average $150 a month due to desert cooling needs per EIA, add pressure to strained budgets. If a national recession hits, Arizona's overheated market could crash hard, leaving the desert high and dry. If you thought Nevada, Florida, and Arizona were in hot water, buckle up, because the next 3 states are facing economic storms that could hit even harder. We're diving deeper into the 10 U.S. states most likely to crumble first if a new Great Depression strikes in 2025. Let's keep the countdown rolling with number 7. Number 7. Louisiana. Louisiana, the land of jazz, gumbo, and Mardi Gras, might be singing the blues if the economy takes a nosedive. This Gulf Coast state has charm for days, but its economic vulnerabilities are stacking up like beads on Bourbon Street. Let's break it down. Louisiana's economy leans heavily on oil and gas, which account for 16% of its GDP, per the Bureau of Economic Analysis. With global oil prices volatile, WTI crude dropped to $68 per barrel in early 2025, down 15% from 2024 peaks, per EIA. The state's energy sector is wobbling. Refinery jobs, which employ 5% of the workforce, are at risk as demand softens, per BLS. The port of South Louisiana, one of the nation's busiest, saw a 10% drop in cargo volume in 2024, signaling trade slowdowns that hit local logistics hard. Then there's the housing market. The median home price in New Orleans, the state's economic hub, is $268,000, which sounds affordable until you factor in the median household income of just $47,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 5.7, pushing affordability out of reach for many. Housing inventory surged 32% year over year, with homes lingering on the market for 90 days, per Redfin. Price cuts are rampant. 25% of listings slashed asking prices in early 2025. Overbuilding in suburbs like Metairie and Slidell, spurred by post-COVID demand, has left developers with unsold homes and rising vacancy rates of 12%, per CoStar. Insurance costs are a gut punch. Louisiana's hurricane-prone coast drives homeowners' insurance premiums to an average of $4,200 annually, nearly double the national average per the Insurance Information Institute. After Hurricanes Ida and Laura, major insurers like State Farm pulled back, leaving homeowners paying up to $7,000 for coverage in flood zones. This scares off buyers and investors, who once flocked to New Orleans' Airbnb market. Short-term rental revenue fell 15% in 2024, per AirDNA, prompting sell-offs. Population loss is another red flag. Louisiana lost 44,000 residents between 2020 and 2024, per U.S. Census estimates, as young professionals and families moved to states with stronger job markets. Unemployment ticked up to 4.9% in early 2025, above the national average per BLS. High crime rates. New Orleans' murder rate is 50 per 100,000, among the highest in the U.S., per FBI data, deter new residents. If a recession hits, Louisiana's reliance on volatile industries and its affordability crisis could make it one of the first to buckle. Number 6. Michigan, the heart of the Rust Belt, is known for its Great Lakes and gritty resilience, but its economy is skating on thin ice in 2025. Once a manufacturing powerhouse, the state's vulnerabilities are piling up faster than snow in Detroit. Let's dive into why Michigan's at risk. The auto industry, which generates 20% of Michigan's GDP, per the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, is facing headwinds. Electric vehicle adoption is slowing. U.S. EV sales growth dropped to 7% in 2024 from 47% in 2023, per Cox Automotive, hurting giants like GM and Ford. Layoffs are mounting. Ford cut 4,000 jobs in 2024, and Stellantis idled plants in Detroit, per Reuters. With Trump's proposed tariffs on imported auto parts potentially raising production costs by 10%, per the Peterson Institute, Michigan's 180,000 auto workers face uncertainty. Unemployment rose to 4.7% in early 2025, per BLS, above the national average. Housing is another sore spot. Detroit's median home price hit $250,000 in 2024, up 40% from 2019, but median household income is just $45,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 5.6, straining affordability. Statewide, inventory jumped 20% year over year, with 30% of listings cutting prices, per Redfin. Homes now sit on the market for 55 days, double the 2021 frenzy. Overbuilding in suburbs like Warren and Sterling Heights has led to vacancy rates of 10%, per CoStar, as demand cools. Michigan's population is shrinking, losing 0.4% annually since 2020, per U.S. Census estimates. Young professionals are leaving for states with stronger tech and service sectors, like Texas and Colorado. High property taxes. Michigan's average effective rate is 1.64%, per Tax Foundation, add pressure to homeowners. Consumer debt is also climbing. Per capita credit card debt hit $6,800 in 2024, per Experian, as inflation outpaces wage growth. Infrastructure woes don't help. Michigan's roads rank among the worst in the U.S., with 32% in poor condition, per ASCE, deterring business investment. If a national downturn hits, Michigan's dependence on a struggling auto industry, combined with housing and demographic challenges, could send it spiraling. Number 5. California. California, the Golden State, might seem untouchable with its tech giants and Hollywood sparkle, but don't be fooled. Cracks are forming in its economic foundation. In 2025, California's sky-high costs and over-reliance on volatile sectors make it a prime candidate for collapse. Let's unpack the numbers. The state's housing market is a ticking time bomb. California's median home price hit $860,000 in 2024, up 60% from 2019, while median household income is $85,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 10.1, the worst in the nation. In San Francisco, homes cost 12 times annual income per Zillow. With mortgage rates at 6.8%, monthly payments on a median home exceed $6,000, pricing out all but the wealthiest. Inventory in Los Angeles County rose 15% year over year, with 25% of listings slashing prices per Redfin. Homes now sit for 45 days, up from 20 in 2021. Overbuilding in suburbs like Irvine and Riverside has led to vacancy rates of 8% per CoStar. The tech sector, which drives 19% of California's GDP per the California Department of Finance, is faltering. Layoffs hit hard in 2024. Meta cut 11,000 jobs, Google slashed 12,000 per Bloomberg, and venture capital funding fell 30% per PitchBook. San Francisco's office vacancy rate hit 36%, the highest in the U.S., per CBRE, as remote work persists. This ripples to retail and service sectors, with 10% of downtown businesses closing in 2024, per SF Chamber of Commerce. California's cost of living is crushing. Groceries are 20% above the national average, and gas averages 5.20 cents per gallon, per AAA. The state's budget deficit ballooned to $68 billion in 2024, per the Legislative Analyst's Office, forcing cuts to education and social services. High taxes. California's top income tax rate is 13.3% per Tax Foundation, drive wealthy residents to states like Texas and Nevada. Net migration out of California was 340,000 in 2024, per U.S. Census estimates. Wildfires and insurance costs add fuel to the fire. Homeowners' insurance premiums average $2,500 annually, but in wildfire-prone areas like Sonoma County, they can hit $5,000 per the California Department of Insurance. Some insurers have stopped writing new policies, squeezing homeowners. If a recession hits, California's unaffordable housing, tech slowdown, and fiscal mess could make it crumble faster than a Hollywood set. Number 4. Illinois, the land of Lincoln, is known for its bustling Chicago skyline and deep dish pizza, but its economic foundation is crumbling faster than a bad pie crust. In 2025, this Midwest powerhouse is grappling with debt, population loss, and a housing market that's starting to wobble. Let's dive into the numbers. First, Illinois' fiscal mess is legendary. The state's pension debt stands at $144 billion, the highest per capita in the U.S., per the Illinois Policy Institute. Add in a $3.2 billion budget deficit for 2025, per the Illinois Comptroller, and you've got a state that's been downgraded to near-junk bond status by Moody's. High taxes aren't helping. Illinois' property tax rate averages 2.23%, the second highest nationally per the Tax Foundation. Chicago homeowners pay $6,800 annually on a $300,000 home, squeezing budgets and driving residents to lower-tax states like Indiana and Wisconsin. The housing market is flashing warning signs. Chicago's median home price hit $360,000 in 2024, up 45% from 2019, but median household income is just $62,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 5.8, pushing affordability out of reach. Inventory surged 22% year over year, with 28% of listings cutting prices per Redfin. Homes now sit on the market for 50 days, up from 25 in 2021. Overbuilding in suburbs like Naperville and Aurora has led to vacancy rates of 9% per co-star as demand cools. Population loss is a gut punch. Illinois lost 150,000 residents between 2020 and 2024, the third worst decline nationally, per U.S. Census estimates. Chicago's population dropped 3% in the same period, as violent crime rates are 617 per 100,000, double the national average per FBI data, pushes families out. The job market isn't helping. Unemployment rose to 5.1% in early 2025 per BLS, driven by layoffs in manufacturing and logistics. Chicago's office vacancy rate hit 23% per CBRE, as remote work empties downtown towers. Illinois' reliance on manufacturing, which accounts for 12% of GDP per the Bureau of Economic Analysis, is a liability. Trump's proposed tariffs on imported steel could raise costs by 15% per the Peterson Institute, hitting factories hard. Consumer debt is also climbing. Per capita credit card debt reached $7,000 in 2024 per Experian, as inflation outpaces wages. If a recession strikes, Illinois' toxic mix of debt, taxes, and population flight could send it spiraling into economic chaos. Number 3. New Jersey. New Jersey, the Garden State, might be close to New York City's glitz, but its economy is wilting under sky-high costs and structural weaknesses. In 2025, this densely packed state is teetering on the edge of an economic cliff. Let's break it down. Start with taxes. New Jersey has the highest property tax rate in the U.S., averaging 2.49% per the Tax Foundation. Homeowners in Bergen County pay $12,000 annually on a $500,000 home, a crushing burden for middle-class families. The state's income tax tops out at 10.75%, among the highest nationally, driving wealthy residents to Florida and Texas. New Jersey's budget deficit hit $2.8 billion in 2024, per the New Jersey Treasury, forcing cuts to education and transit. The housing market is a nightmare. The median home price statewide reached $510,000 in 2024, up 55% from 2019, while median household income is $89,000 per U.S. Census data. That's a price-to-income ratio of 5.7, signaling severe unaffordability. In Newark and Jersey City, inventory rose 18% year over year, with 30% of listings slashing prices per Redfin. Homes now linger for 45 days, double the 2021 frenzy. Overbuilding in suburbs like Princeton and Montclair has led to vacancy rates of 8% per co-star. Mortgage payments on a median home at 6.8% interest eat up 38% of average income, per Zillow. Jobs are a growing concern. New Jersey's unemployment rate climbed to 4.9% in early 2025 per BLS. The state's pharmaceutical sector, a key employer, faced headwinds as patents expired. Pfizer cut 1,500 jobs in 2024 per Bloomberg. Logistics, tied to the Port of Newark, saw a 7% drop in cargo volume per the Port Authority as trade slows. High costs are driving businesses away. Office vacancy rates in northern New Jersey hit 20% per CBRE. Population loss is accelerating. New Jersey lost 100,000 residents between 2020 and 2024 per U.S. Census estimates, as high taxes and living costs push families out. Per capita consumer debt hit $8,200, the highest in the Northeast, per Experian. Infrastructure is crumbling. 35% of roads are in poor condition, per ASCE, deterring investment. If a downturn hits, New Jersey's reliance on commuting workers, high taxes, and an unaffordable housing market could make it crumble faster than a boardwalk taffy stand in a storm. Number 2. New York, New York, the Empire State, is home to Wall Street and the Big Apple, but its economic crown is tarnishing fast. In 2025, New York's sky-high costs, population exodus, and over-reliance on finance make it a prime candidate for collapse. Let's dive into the data. Housing is absurdly unaffordable. The statewide median home price hit $450,000 in 2024, but in New York City, it's $780,000 per Zillow. Median household income is $75,000 statewide per U.S. Census data, giving a price-to-income ratio of 10.4 in NYC, the worst in the U.S. Mortgage payments on a median NYC home, at 6.8% interest, cost $5,500 monthly, eating up 70% of average income. Inventory in Manhattan rose 15% year over year, with 25% of listings cutting prices per Redfin. Homes sit for 60 days, triple the 2021 boom. Upstate, overbuilding in Albany and Rochester pushed vacancy rates to 9% per CoStar. The finance sector, which drives 18% of New York's GDP per the New York State Comptroller, is shaky. Interest rate hikes cooled mergers and IPOs, with Wall Street bonuses down 20% in 2024 per Bloomberg. Layoffs hit major banks. J.P. Morgan cut 2,000 jobs per Reuters, rippling to retail and services. NYC's office vacancy rate soared to 17% per CBRE as hybrid work empties skyscrapers. Tourism, another pillar, dipped 5% as inflation cut travel budgets per NYC and Company. New York's budget is a mess. The state faces a $13.7 billion deficit in 2025 per the New York State Division of the Budget, with NYC's deficit at $7 billion. High taxes, combined state and city income tax can hit 14.7% per Tax Foundation, drive wealthy residents to Florida and Tennessee. Net migration out of New York was 200,000 in 2024, per U.S. Census estimates. Crime and infrastructure add fuel to the fire. NYC's violent crime rate is 585 per 100,000 per FBI data, deterring residents and businesses. Subways and roads are deteriorating. 40% of bridges need repairs per ASCEE. Per capita consumer debt hits $7,500 per Experian as living costs soar. If a recession strikes, New York's unaffordable housing, fiscal chaos, and reliance on a volatile finance sector could send it crashing harder than a Broadway flop. Number 1. West Virginia. West Virginia, the Mountain State, might be known for its rugged beauty and coal mining heritage, but in 2025, it's the most vulnerable state in the U.S. to an economic collapse. With a weak economy, shrinking population, and structural challenges piling up, West Virginia is teetering on the edge of disaster. Let's break down why it's number 1 on our list. First, the economy is dangerously dependent on coal, which accounts for 14% of GDP per the West Virginia Department of Commerce. Coal production has plummeted, down 40% since 2010, per the Energy Information Administration, as global demand shifts to renewables. In 2024, coal employed just 11,000 workers, a fraction of its peak, per BLS. Other sectors like manufacturing and retail are stagnant, and the state's GDP growth was a meager 0.8% in 2024, the lowest in the U.S., per the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Unemployment hit 5.8% in early 2025, one of the highest nationally, per BLS. Low-wage jobs dominate. Median household income is $52,000, the second lowest in the U.S., per U.S. Census data, leaving little cushion for economic shocks. The housing market is a quiet disaster. West Virginia's median home price is $180,000, the lowest in the nation, but with such low incomes, the price-to-income ratio is still 3.5, straining affordability for locals, per Zillow. Housing inventory surged 20% year over year, with homes lingering on the market for 70 days, per Redfin. Price cuts hit 25% of listings as demand dries up. Unlike other states, West Virginia never saw a post-COVID housing boom, so there's no buffer. Vacancy rates in rural areas like Charleston and Huntington reached 12% per CoStar as young families move away. Population decline is crippling. West Virginia lost 3.2% of its population between 2010 and 2024, the worst in the U.S., per U.S. Census estimates. In 2024 alone, 8,000 residents left, driven by job scarcity and declining quality of life. The state's workforce is shrinking. Labor force participation is just 55% per BLS, compared to the national 62%. Aging demographics worsen the problem. 20% of residents are over 65, per U.S. Census data, straining healthcare and pension systems. The state's pension fund faces a $1.8 billion shortfall, per the West Virginia Public Employees Retirement System. Infrastructure and health crises add fuel to the fire. West Virginia's roads rank among the worst, with 35% in poor condition, per ASCE, deterring business investment. The opioid epidemic remains a scourge. Overdose deaths hit 74 per 100,000 in 2023, the highest nationally, per CDC, draining communities and workforces. Consumer debt is rising. Per capita credit card debt reached $6,500 in 2024, per Experian, despite low incomes. West Virginia's lack of economic diversity is its Achilles heel. Unlike states with tech or tourism to fall back on, it has few alternatives if coal collapses further. Trump's proposed tariffs on imported steel, which could raise costs for small manufacturers, per the Peterson Institute, threaten the state's few remaining factories. If a recession hits, West Virginia's already fragile economy could shatter, leaving its mountains echoing with economic despair. The U.S. economy is at a crossroads. Inflation, tariffs, and global trade tensions could tip us into a downturn, and these 10 states are the canaries in the coal mine. Which state surprised you the most? Are you in one of these danger zones, or do you think your state's safe? Let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts below. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, stay tuned for more real talk on what's next for America's economy.